It's not often that we get a game where we've kept a clean sheet and we have won a game. Man United won, Newcastle nil. It's been just a straightforward game, honestly. The first half, we tried to play the game. We tried to do what we've done in the past few games where Amarim was told to change the system and he changed the system. Because that's exactly what happened. The guy did not just wake up one day after saying in press conference after press conference after press conference that he will not adapt his system because he is rigid in his formation. And that was one of his main selling points to the fans, saying, why I'm better than Ten Hag, why I'm better than Ole, indirectly. Yet the guy has now changed to a 4-2-3-1. And for the first time, we actually saw the team play well. Now, some people would say, coincidentally, that's the same time that Bruno Fernandes is out of the team. Why do you think that is? That's pretty simple, because when Bruno Fernandes plays in the team, we're going to hoof the ball a lot more. This time, it was more Mount, Cunha. What are they good at? They're good at playing the ball short and quick. And even in that midfield, even despite Ugarte playing just like he always does, having a bad game, we had Casemiro to mop up. We had Cunha, who was balling on a different level. We had Sesko, who was performing similar to the levels we saw in the earlier games for United. We can see United go to the next level. The thing was, the first half probably warranted one, or maybe you could even say two goals. Because remember, Sesko did hit the post in the second half. We did have a couple of chances after scoring 1-0. And Newcastle were not that good. As much as we did sit back in the second half, the whole reason we sat back was because Amarim decided, you know what, we're going to go to a back six. Because the back five wasn't doing it for him now. Now he had to get that win. He had to get that clean sheet, 1-0. Now you tell me, you might say it was a good idea because he was doing damage limitation. But you look at the team that we were facing in Newcastle, this team was deflated. You look at their away record, only Wolves had a worse away record, right? So we're looking at a team that does not win away from home. A team that just drew to Chelsea, by the way. And now we're saying that in the second half at Old Trafford, we're sitting back, parking the bus to secure the win. Yes, Tonali is good. Yes, Guimaraes is good. And once you bring on Joel Linton, the game is going to be physical. So if that is all the case, why do you bring off Casemiro at the 60th minute? Is it to manage games? Is it so that he can be fit for Wolves? Because if I'm to look at the games, I would say, yes, we won this game against Newcastle, but we know 100 times out of 101 times, we would have lost that game because, you know, the midfield loses discipline. When Casemiro leaves, Ugarte looks lost. Jack Fletcher, who came on, the guy's a kid. I'm not going to slate him per se, but he was at fault for leaving lapses in behind. Lenny Yoro, when he came on, the guy was looking lost. That right side with Anthony Gordon and Lewis Hall, they were cooking him every time they had a challenge on that right side. And the same errors keep happening time in, time out. Every chance that gets created is the exact same way. It's because either on the left side or the right side, there's a space left in behind because the centre back, the left centre back and the left wing back, or the right centre back and the right wing back do not communicate. Or in other words, they just don't know what to do. Because if you saw, there was a good chance that Gordon actually put into the box because he had a wide amount of space. But why was that wide amount of space created? Well, it's because Dallo was defending that right wing back spot, which is traditionally an Amarim right wing back spot. And then Lenny Yoro steps up. Now, you could say that it's Lenny Yoro's own decision, but I say it's a tactical error because Amarim makes these tactical errors too often for this to be a recurring mistake. Because I've seen Luke Shaw do this a couple of times in previous games, especially Wolves, where he left few gaps in the defense. And while Wolves weren't good enough to go and score 2 or 3. But we know that same flaw happens on the left side often. But now we're seeing this on the right side. And this is when you have to talk about this is a tactical flaw. The tactical flaw that keeps getting exposed, the reason why our defenders aren't doing so well. Because can you really tell me if De Ligt comes back, once Maguire comes back, that we're not going to have these defensive errors ever again? No, because we do keep going back to pushing a high line with our left centre-back and our right centre-back, which is the dumbest thing you do unless you have your left wing-back and right wing-back covering. And if you want your left wing-back or right wing-back to cover at centre-back, which does not make sense to begin with. In that case, you are pretty much playing a back five. But I thought Amarim likes playing a back three with a 3-4-3, which means essentially we might term it as a left wing back, right wing back, but really they want to be left midfielders and right midfielders. And Amarim is exposing himself not only in his press conferences with the weird way that he frames sentences and he just goes back on his word. Just like with his formation, he said, I would never change my formation. I know what I'm doing and I will trust my process. I'm not going to change it for anybody. Yet, we saw news that when we were linked to Semenyo, they were ready to ditch the system immediately and go for Semenyo. And now he's realizing, well, now I might have to adapt because I might not have the money, I might not have the resource and the time to invest in a 3-4-3, a perfect 3-4-3. The guy thinks that a perfect 3-4-3 means that you have to play the perfect centre back, perfect left centre back, right centre back, and even your midfielders and your right wing back, left wing back have to be the best in the world. Essentially, he wants Nuno Mendes and Hakimi at either side. Now, is that even achievable? Hell no, it's not. But you look at something that's already worked, a 3-4-3. People say a 3-4-3 doesn't work. This is why I always say it's not the formation, it's the person implementing the formation, or rather, the system. Because Chelsea had a 3-4-3. And guess what Chelsea did with a 3-4-3? They won the league. They had Victor Moses on the right wing back spot. They had Marcos Alonso as left wing back. And they still won the league. You know why? Because they were overlapping and crossing. It was a very simple system. It wasn't complicated like Amarim's, where both your 10s invert and your left wing backs and right wing backs invert. Because the problem is, then you're pretty much forming a Christmas tree. Happy Christmas probably was a tribute to Christmas anyways. But we often see that our wing backs do not put in crosses, our 10s do not put in crosses either, because they're all inverting into a triangular shape. And when you have that triangular shape, what you need is either midfielders bombing out. But what happens when the midfield bombs out is exactly what happens every single game. Because you have Bruno Fernandes who pretty much wants to maraud anywhere he can. And then you have occasionally Ugarte who plays like today, where he also marauds forward, but which means that Casemiro is left as the sole man in midfield. Where have we seen this before? If you guys remember, when we played in 23-24 with Amrabat as a sole midfielder, you guys remember that one picture where across almost 25 yards, funnily against Newcastle, there was no man in midfield except Amrabat. There was nobody there because we were essentially playing a 4-1-5. And the 4-1-5 gets exposed. But in Amarim's system, to make it look catchy, eye-catching, the thing is, he says it's a 3-4-3. And this 3-4-3 is essentially the same 5-1-4 or 4-1-5 that we played under Ten Hag. The midfield gets vacated very often, too often, for us to really control games, which is why we don't see Kobe Mainoo playing. Do you guys really buy the fact that he's injured? Conveniently so, in the moment where Bruno Fernandes is injured, where other players are injured, where Kobe Mainoo would be getting a start. I think this is Amarim trying to push him out. And there's another player, Zirkzee as well. Yeah, he might not have had the best game, but Zirkzee is being pushed out by Amarim as well. Because who brings on Jack Fletcher, especially when it's for Mason Mount? Why bring on Jack Fletcher, a young guy who's hardly played, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of football? Why would you bring him on instead of Zirkzee? For Zirkzee, who is a seasoned professional after all. You would trust him more. But this means they're trying to push Zirkzee out, they're trying to push Mainoo out. And the club is unfortunately losing its morals. So regardless of what you think, when it comes to good players being shipped out, it does not make any sense. Kobe Mainoo's treatment does not make any sense because we know what he did with England. And on the other side was Lewis Miley, who people were saying were better than Kobe, but I didn't see any of that today. In fact, the entire Newcastle team, where's Voltemade? He's a very good player, but where was he today? That credit I have to give to Aiden Heaven, because Heaven really did play out of his skin. He played at a mature, composed level today, which we haven't seen this season. I would say this was his best personal performance this season, and he kept a clean sheet to add to that. But I know I've left it late, but Cunha, guys, we have to talk about that guy. He's a maverick. The guy's showing me game in, game out. Even the Villa game where we lost, where he scored, he was levels apart from any other player in creation when it came to controlling the ball, when it came to getting out of pressure situations. That's all Cunha. And when we don't have Mbomo to run down the flank, he can run as well. The guy is not slow, and and he's so good at progressing the ball that we forget his other attributes completely. Yes, he has a shot. He has way too many shots for my liking, to be honest, because I would like him to get closer to the goal before he tries a shot. But it's this erratic nature that gets us something. So this is essentially what I'm looking for in Fernandes. When people say, "Oh, Bruno Fernandes is the best 10 in the league and he's definitely the best player at United," he's not, because what I expect from my best player at United would be something what Cunha is doing right now. If not controlling the midfield like Casemiro is, you gotta do what Cunha is as a 10. And I haven't seen Bruno control or dribble the ball like Cunha has. Because the guy can progress the ball with speed and intensity and intention, which it's hard to get in these days. Especially, you look at the other signings that have happened concurrently with Cunha, right, in other clubs. Even Semenyo. Is Semenyo better than Cunha? I don't think so. You look at the other left wing options that are out there, the left 10 options. The only one you can compare out there on level with Cunha is probably NDI, who we should go get, but will we go get because of the finances in the summer? We don't know. But the only one I can compare is NDI. Apart from that, Cunha is just levels, and he's showing us game in, game out that this guy, he's worth the money that we paid. He's worth the number that we put on the back of his shirt. The guy is actually showing us number 10 Maverick performances. Dorgu again, that goal was a banger. Will he ever score that again? We don't know. In fact, I must say this. I don't think he will ever score a goal like that ever again. But he did, but he was there in the moment where he needed to be, and he scored the goal, which ultimately won us the game. Now, was this a vintage United performance? No. We did play something where we can actually latch onto it and say, there is potential. But where the potential ends is at the manager, because the manager nearly threw us the game in the second half with his horrible substitutions. Horrible substitutions do not always get us luck. And we know that, because last season was all because of Amarim. And why we are not probably in second or even first this season is because of Amarim. So what do you guys think? Comment down below about this game, and I'll see you on the next one.